We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Laura McConnell, and I'm the Public Information Officer with the Rocky Mountain Type 1 team. I'm one of the Public Information Officers working with the team down here. Just a few housekeeping items for our media folks. For this evening, we have our Incident Commander Pete Bloom, who is going to be here. Pete, P-E-T-E, his last name Bloom, B-L-U-M-E. We also have Adam Mendonça, and he is the Deputy Forest Supervisor with the Rio Grande. Common name spelling of Adam, last name M-E-N-D-O-N-C-A. C is in Charles. Yes, ma'am. So I also wanted to let you know that tomorrow morning at the 9 o'clock briefing, we will have an incident commander here, as well as our air operations chief that will be here to speak with you and answer some of your questions that you've had about aviation. I did send some information out based on a conversation I had with him earlier over Twitter. So if you're following Twitter, you'll be able to see that, and we can give updates after that. So how tonight we'll do it is I'll go ahead and let Adam give a briefing here, talk to some folks, and then we'll have our incident commander, and then afterwards they'll both field questions that folks have. Okay, I'll go ahead and turn that over. Go ahead.
So, I am Adam Mendonça, and I'm the new Deputy Forest Supervisor here on the Rio Grande National Forest. So, for me, we've got a really big incident going here, and we've had a big incident going for a few days, and with this big incident, one of the things that I'm really proud of, and I really wanted to speak to a little bit this evening, was just all the cooperation we've seen and the support we've seen. And I wanted to thank all of the folks, the local communities, all of the local responders, those people who have come together to try and help us to actually make this possible. We recognize it's a huge impact when we actually get into something like this. We've evacuated people, we've flooded some of the neighboring towns, and so I can't say enough for the local communities and the things that they've done to help us out. And this event's going to continue, and as we continue, we're going to try to continue to work with the local communities and look forward to doing that. Now, with the incident we've got going, there's a lot of complexity to it, and so with that complexity, we're constantly trying to evaluate what is important to us. And for us here on the Rio Grande, and the message we've tried to give to everyone is safety. We're trying to look out for public safety. It's been the primary focus since we actually got involved with this incident, and it will continue to be the primary focus. In addition to the public safety, and it's just as high a priority, is our firefighter safety. And so with those objectives in mind, I feel like we've been very successful thus far. I'm very pleased, and the Rio Grande is very pleased with what we've been able to do, and looking to continue that. So we're thrilled with the work that the team has done for us so far. It's been great. They're really providing that support that we needed, because we were really taxed with this. And so thrilled to have the team here. And again, just from the Rio Grande side, I wanted to come up this evening and tell everyone thank you from this local community for the support we've given. Wanted to just engage with the public some, and let you know that every step of the way we take it very serious, and we're going to try to continue to just provide those strategic objectives that is keeping everyone safe that we've been doing in the past. So.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Pete Bloom, Incident Commander for the Rocky Mountain Area Team. I have generally good news for the day. Despite the big column that you saw out to the west, that most of that was an interior island burning within the area of the two spots that had come out of the West Fork. So I don't know how well it will show from a distance, but basically this area right in here was producing most of the smoke that you saw today, and we had very little advance of the perimeter of the fire, either on the Wolf Creek side or on the Papoose side. So although there was a lot of interior island burning, we did not see the perimeter advance, and every day that we get something like that is, one more day that gives us an edge to get some work done on the ground to protect those areas of biggest concern. Along with that, we did make some progress down in the South Fork area. where we had some people on the ground back away from the community, starting to look at places we could put in control lines to kind of herd the fire around South Fork, getting a start on that. So though we're early in our stage here at the fire, that certainly today was not a bad day, despite the amount of smoke generated by the fire. I think for the most part, that's really all I have to report. Had a number of meetings with community leaders, with the public out at the evac center this morning, and we hope we're getting the information that you need to be able to have an idea what the fire is doing and how we're getting progress on it. I guess along with that good day, obviously I wouldn't be saying that if any structures had been burned today. Again, to this date, we have no confirmed report of having lost any structures, and if that changes, we certainly will let you know. I think with that, I would turn it to questions, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Do you have an estimate on the size of the fire tonight, or do you think it's about the same, but you say it in advance?
Well, though it did burn out a lot of interior, frequently when we draw the lines and calculate acres, we kind of circle that stuff anyway. So I expect to see some growth, but I don't expect it to see it have grown as much as what actually burned, if that makes sense, because we burned out an interior island was the biggest part of the burning. And I believe the last number I saw as I left ICP was 73,000 acres for the entire complex. That's the total, the Papoose fire, the West Fork fire, and the Windy Pass fire.
For Papoose, there are a lot of structures up in that neck of the woods. There are a lot of structures scattered in the hills and stuff. In some instances, is it impossible for folks to get in and confirm whether some structures have been damaged or not?
It can be. We feel fairly certain that we have not lost anything in the Papoose area. Where that difficulty in confirming what's been lost is usually when the area is engulfed in fire and it's too hot or too smoky or one thing or another to get in there. I have had no reports that the perimeter grew in there to a level that would lead me to believe we lost anything.
You said this morning that you didn't expect really a break in the weather until Tuesday. Is that still?
That's still the case. We actually may have a windier day tomorrow than we had today. And now that island's burned out, we may see the perimeter grow some more. You know, it's one of those things that certainly could happen, but I can't project exactly how it will happen until we get through the day.
Yesterday you guys said that you were calling this defensive in the way that you were fighting this. Would you still characterize that, or would you say you're beginning to get some offense on that?
I would say for the most part we're still in a defensive mode, that we really have to establish more of a presence on the ground, have anchor points in place before we can start putting out, you know, a big enough group to where you would really call it an offensive action. We do hope within, you know, the next week that we are able to get in places and do more things where we're you know, going more on the offensive, but still with this fire and the fire behavior that we've seen, I think it's likely for some time we'll be doing that point protection that I believe I spoke of, where we'll be going in around high value resources and putting our effort in there to make sure that they're not burned.
How close is the fire to South Fork, and when can residents expect to go back?
You know, because it's, you know, there's a perimeter to the fire, it's a little bit difficult to say at any one point, but I think I'd characterize it in general as 2 to 3 miles up from South Fork. Certainly not, you know, an imminent threat. Your second question, as far as when they might be able to return, as I said this morning, I can't predict with any specificity, but I think that there's a good chance it's 5 days to a week before we have any point that we can say that things have changed enough that it's safe to return. But we'll be constantly evaluating that, working with the local officials and determining that to get the folks back in their homes as quick in their businesses as quickly as we can.
Would you go into more detail of what you're trying to do with the fire in South Fork?
Well, I can go into detail in a general way if you can accept that. Basically, what we will be looking to do. Let me get my bearing on the map here. Okay. Right now, as you see, the fire is up here above South Fork, and what we're looking to do is, at the points we can, I'm sorry, turn back this way. At the points we can, we'll be looking to use natural barriers and breaks in the fuel, again, as we described this morning, to find a way to get line in across here to act as a barrier to the fire spread towards South Fork. So between that line, things that we'll do with aircraft possibly burning out from that line, and other things, we'll look to shift the movement of the fire to the north and away from South Fork. Again, that's the goal we have, but the specifics of exactly when and how we'll get that accomplished will develop over the next few days.
Will that be a form of backbone?
There will undoubtedly be some back burning from the lines, and why that's necessary, as you've seen this fire, it frequently spots miles ahead of itself. So any line we build, even with bulldozers, would be meaningless if it wasn't reinforced to put some distance between that line and the main fire.
Can you talk a little bit about air attack and the DC-10s? They're not here. Why?
Well, in part, to make any real progress with air attack, you have to be able to follow it up on the ground with hand crews and others to build line to actually hold the fire at where that retardant goes. I believe I spoke this morning of the ineffectiveness of dropping retardant just out in the middle of a fire without something that you're working against. What we'll be looking to do as we get closer to the areas that we're putting in line is reinforcing those with retardant and other things. So for now, most of what you'll see in retardant or in helicopters will be related to point protection or cooling the advance in a specific area, but something like the DC-10 is not particularly effective at what we're doing at this point in the fire. Yes?
What day did the fire start? And was a decision made to let it burn to get rid of some of the beetle kill?
I can confirm that there was no decision to let it burn related to resources or anything. I'm going to have to defer to the forest. We didn't get here till after it started, and I frankly don't recall.
So I can't give you the exact date. The two fires that originally started were the Windy Pass fire and the West Fork fire. They both started on the San Juan National Forest. And when those fires started, the San Juan National Forest made an evaluation of those fires. And during that evaluation, they determined that they were going to suppress. Those two fires started in very rugged, rough terrain. And so they found suppression actions to be difficult, and they were unable to suppress the fires. And so as they continued to move, of course, that effort became larger and larger. So there was not a decision to allow the fires to burn to clean up the beetle kill.
Do you know when
I
they
think-
started?
I don't know the exact day.
We were told June 5th. Was it as early as June 5th?
June 5th is consistent with what I heard of the initial start. Not having been here, I can speak to what generally happens in initial attack, that you would respond with your local resources, try to get into the fire as best you could, and put it out at its smallest area. The thing that I can say just from what I've seen in the fuels here, with all the dead spruce, as thick as it was, that it would generally rapidly exceed the capability of a small initial attack force. And then we had the weather and the wind events that we've seen since then that really have moved it to a level that, you know, no matter how many resources we put against it, we're going to have some help from Mother Nature before we make a big impact with it.
Do you feel like you have adequate resources?
The question over here about resources, yes, we've been doing really well there. We are ranked the #1 priority nationally, so we kind of get the pick of what's available. It's put us in a very good position to get what we need, and so unlike what it can be when a fire season gets really busy, we've had good response to everything we've asked for.
So what kind of an attack was there when the fire first started locally?
I think I could speak to that generally, but nobody here was there. Typically it would be you have local engine crews assigned around the various ranger districts and BLM districts around the state. When you get a report of a fire, those people respond. Obviously, in the country we're in, it frequently involves calling for smoke jumpers, helicopters, depending on the situation. But again, when you're dealing with a rapidly expanding fire, heavy fuels, that it isn't always successful, and that's why we have a lot of fires. Actually, 95% or more of the fires that start every year are caught as small fires, but that still makes 2 to 5% that get to be big fires that are just flat out hard to put out.
Adam, the Papoose fire actually started later than the other fires, did it not?
It did.
And was it lightning caused? Do we know what the ignition was on that?
Cause of the fire would be undetermined. However, the first thing we did look into is, did we feel it was spotting caused by the 2 fires that we already had established? And based on the distance, we don't believe that to be the case. So, but the cause would be unknown.
Do you know when it started?
My days run together a little bit, but I believe that the fire started on Thursday, or that's when we got the first reports of the fire. And when we were able to actually confirm that, we had quite a bit of smoke in the air, so that proved to be, at least initially, a difficult task. But
I guess on these two.
30-mile campground, and do you know if 30 Mile is standing or not?
I'd have to admit, not being a local, I'm not familiar with that location.
Adam is.
I am. I don't know if someone has been there or not. However, as Pete mentioned earlier, we've had firefighters working in that Papoose area, and we don't have any beliefs that we've lost structures, and that would include that 30 mile.
It kind of looks like it's totally engulfed.
They said it was still standing this morning. It was still standing this morning.
Okay.
Those were in there. Don't know throughout the day what happened.
Okay.
With being the #1 priority in the country in terms of a fire, what extra resources will we expect this week in terms of firefighters, air support?
Well, basically what it means is that most everything that we asked for, we're likely to get. So we place orders at various times, usually every day, for those resources that we need to add to the fight based on what's appropriate. Sometimes it's hand crews, sometimes it's aviation, sometimes it's engines, but being the #1 priority means what's available is likely to come to us before it would go to someone else. And again, you can't ask to be in a better position when you're trying to put out a fire.
How many personnel were there today on the fire?
I'll speak to the east zone side because at the last count at tonight's what we call 209 report, we had just over 500 people on this side of the fire. When you see the report actually come out tomorrow, it's likely to be a number bigger than that, but it will include what's on the west zone as well.
How many of those 500 are volunteers?
I'd just be, kind of swagging it because I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I think it's safe to say we probably have in the neighborhood of 80 volunteers participating from different fire departments around Colorado and supporting areas.
Do we have any idea of the cost so far of fighting this fire?
We do. It's something we report every day. The last number that I saw, I believe, was 2.2 million. Laura, do you know any different?
Yeah, I haven't seen the current.
Okay, approximately $2.2 million.
Can you go over mandatory evacuations and the pre-evacuations? There was some conflicting information about Creed, and that's not in the pre-evacuation zone.
Okay, what I can tell you, again, evacuations are run by the county sheriffs. They have a couple levels, the pre-evac, which is kind of a get ready, be prepared should an evacuation order come, and then there is the actual evacuation. As specific to Creed, information went out earlier today that was incorrect. Creed is not under a pre-evacuation order, nor, speaking to the operations folks or the county sheriff, is there any expectation it will anytime soon.
We'll have a couple more questions if we can, so we get the incident commander back to his job.
What's the National Guard doing in town? Are they helping with the fire?
Yes, they are. One of the things that we get as a help from the state is access to what we call National Guard assets. You know, it can be anything from the aircraft the National Guard has, if we need that. In this case, the counties in this part of Colorado are typically small counties. The sheriffs aren't well staffed and have a very difficult time doing all the things that are involved, from evacuations to road closures to doing property protection of any areas that are evacuated to make sure no looters or anything happen. Anyway, the prominent principal role that the guard that's here is to help with road closures and support law enforcement kind of things to secure the area and the property behind it.
Since we're in the defensive mode, what are most of those 500 people doing?
You may have heard of creating defensible space and fuel reduction and things like that. In some places, they will be brushing back from whatever, say if it's a house or a campground or any area of value, they can be working in there doing that. Frankly, sometimes when the fire is a long way away, it can be a matter of staging there in case in any given day, if the winds decide to push south or into an area where they haven't been, it allows us to be prepared and have somebody there. It certainly doesn't mean that they're doing nothing, but it does mean they're there for when they're needed for what happens there.
It seemed like today the plume was much larger than previous days. Was the fire really active today?
It was very, very active, and as you saw, it was the plume topped out at about 15,000 feet, and it is what we call a plume-dominated fire. It was very active, very hot, but again, it was that interior island burning out in West Fork, so we didn't see a lot of perimeter gain with it.
What's the cause of light smoke versus black smoke?
All right, we'll go ahead and stop for tonight so we can get the incident commander back to the incident command post. He's on loan to me right now. For tomorrow, we'll have the media briefing again here at 9 o'clock in the morning. We will have the incident commander back with some more information. We'll also have our Air Ops director that will be here, Larry Trapp, to speak to you about a lot of the questions that folks have about aviation resources. Just a reminder for folks, if it is difficult to hear, it's not a speaker system we're using. It's media briefing. So just if you can't hear, we apologize on that. We do have community briefing tomorrow at 9 o'clock at the Red Cross, and that will continue every morning. And you're welcome to attend that as well. Not the media. That's just for the residents to get their questions asked. We have another incident commander for them as well. So I'll stick around in case you have any questions for this evening. Thank you again for everybody attending. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you.